What we generally do with negative people or situations or circumstances, we generally react to the person. So what happens is, it's like Newtonian law. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So if someone is negative, it generally, what we do is we react. And as much as you and I think we react positively, all we're doing is contributing to the negativity. By default of reaction, you react to something that may be negative. All it may do is elicit negativity in you. For example, you may be watching your favorite politician speak. I use the word favorite in inverted commas, right? I'm not sure if anyone has a favorite politician. Right? And as whoever it is, at some point, or you're in parliament, you may be watching all this. There's something that they say that just completely aggroes you. Your blood pressure goes up, your pulse rate goes up, you like completely on edge, and you wish you could give them a piece of your mind. What have they done, negative people, if they've pressed the button? They exposed your vulnerability, in fact, and they realize they got you going. And all you've done is reacted to them. And it wouldn't matter who is right and who is wrong. The mere fact that they elicited a reaction is enough. So for example, if you and I are talking about something that happened on the continent of Antarctica, all right, and someone at one of those camps there, something had gone wrong, most of us would not react because we don't necessarily we may care about what had happened, but it won't affect us personally because we don't necessarily have a relationship with someone, I assume, on the Antarctic mainland, right? So we won't react. But if it's closer to home in terms of space, then we tend to react. And if it's close in terms of relationship, then we react, and also in terms of time. All right, so all those factors, the more we invest in someone, we tend to react. And someone in a position of power, like a politician, will tend to react. But rather, this is very important, rather than reacting, you and I need to learn to respond. You and I need to let people be what they want to be. If they choose to be negative, let them be negative. Yes, it may be challenging at some time to put the person, if the person's close to you, it's tougher to kind of switch them off. If they're on television, like your politician, you switch it off if it elicits negativity in you. If it's on social media, don't go there, to that particular person or site. Some people in our family home, it's tough to switch off from them. Okay? Now, how then do you deal with someone who may be, as we may call it, in your ear, or in your face, who is behaving negatively? And they may be right up close to you and telling you off. This demands a lot of self-control, introspection, and might some argue restraint. But you have to come again from a place of compassion, kindness, and care. And I'll give you an example, is that as part of coaching work I do, I'll ask a business client, so tell me how your week was. And they'll describe, I was up at 3 in the morning finishing reports. I got to bed at 10 o'clock at night. And they'll give me what I call the hamster wheel, the rat race of life, the flying around on the freeway around the city of London or Johannesburg or wherever they are, right? At 120 k's an hour or whatever speed, and even beyond that. And they'll describe the process of life. And beyond that, I'll ask them, so how are you? And they'll continue, though, to tell me about the rat race. But no one stops to address exactly how they are as people. What people do when they are being negative, they're talking about a situation, a circumstance, or event, or sometimes even a person. And 99% of all those things we discuss that are negative actually are temporary. What you fundamentally need to look at is who are you as a person and who the person is as a person. And you ask them how they feel. They sometimes are stumped. They may say, hey, yes, I'm angry, I'm upset, I'm negative. But what are you fundamentally? how are you as a person? So the idea is to still rather comes from a space of compassion and kindness. And I've seen it where people are fundamentally different if you address them from a deep space of who they are and where they're coming from. I'll give you a practical example. Years ago, when I was a medical student in South Africa, and I was working at Helen Joseph Hospital. And Chris Hani was assassinated. There was loads of anger, resentments. All right? There was talks of a civil war even. It was going to be crazy because he was one of the stalwarts of the struggle. And we were put on high alert. I was working in a surgical unit that every hospital had to be on high alert because we didn't know what to expect. All right? This was prior to the 1994 elections. And something very interesting happened. Remember, this was prior to 94. Mandela was no president. In fact, if any title they had called him up to that point was generally terrorist who had been a prisoner. So he was just kind of someone who may be standing for president. But something beautiful happened. He came onto television, the old SABC, and he appealed for peace. And he spoke from a space of compassion, kind and caring and love for his country. The funeral was supposed to be on a Saturday. You could sense the tension in the air. We were at the hospital the Saturday night. It was one of the quietest nights we ever had. It was how he made the whole country feel. One man, one person, with no title at that time, in terms of being a president or a man in power as such. In fact, the power he had was invested in him as a human being, as a person. Shifted how everyone felt, not just in the room, in the entire country. And it was amazing. It was actually one of the most quietest nights, as in not your general Saturday night at a hospital surgical casualty. You can change people, but it means you and I need to change what we are on the inside, regardless of what life throws at you. And life is going to throw at you curveballs, bullets, knives, loads of things, all right? You need to just come from that space of compassion and kindness. And you got to make it fundamentally part of your DNA, your wiring, your firing, that you do not respond negatively. And you'll find people will placate. People will calm down. Now, on YouTube and other channels, you always see these videos of people who walk into like literally the lion's den or a snake cage or these cheetahs or some other wild animal. And they kind of get away with it, right? But if you look at their nature, they're absolutely calm, cool, collected. And it's not as superficial. It comes from a deeper space where they feel they're in control of the situation. And interestingly, these wild animals pick it up. Human beings can also pick up this nature. We do it. We respond to how people come across. All right? Even in the movies, something interesting. In the old days, there was a series of movies called Dirty Harry. Okay? And if you know the main character, his name is Clint Eastwood. And something very interesting about Clint Eastwood and Dirty Harry, he was always calm, cool, collected. He had that look. Not much facial expression, but that was it. And he'd be standing there with his suit in 1970s bell bottoms and have this huge gun and be pointed at the forehead of someone lying on the floor who was shaking and hyperventilating, heart rate, sweating, all the symptoms of a panic attack. And Clint Eastwood would stand there absolutely cool, calm, collected, saying, "Make my day," right? Okay? And as a moviegoer watching this, why were you convinced about the scene? Why? Because regardless, Clint Eastwood looked like he was in absolute control, whereas the poor guy on the floor was completely freaking out. It's not about now behaving like Clint Eastwood and telling someone that you're negative towards "make my day." It's about, it won't go down well, right? It's about coming from a place of compassion, kindness, and care. I'm reminded of two people. I think it was Pope John Paul II. Something very interesting, because what's the height of someone acting negatively towards you? Is that they're aggressive. Do you agree? Physically, mentally, and emotionally. And to the point where they may take your life. There was an assassination attempt on his life. He was in a car, an open car, on the front of the Sistine Chapel in the open area, and someone shot at him. He was wounded, but he survived. And something very interesting that the Pope did, he visited the person that had attempted to assassinate him in prison. And he, as much as it sounds like it's cliched, but from a deep space of compassion, kindness, and care, he forgave the person.